Hello everyone, I'm the Lexo623. Here's another video from me. So, as you could see by that little intro that I just put together, this is Harry Potter month. Now you're probably going to be like, well, how can you do all the Harry Potter movies in 1 month if there's like 9 movies? Yes, there's 9, I'm counting Fantastic Beasts. And to that I say, well, not going to be doing it in 1 month. I'm going to be doing it for the months of September and October. As opposed to doing something special for October, I'm just going to be doing Harry Potter movies. This wasn't thought out very well. I might be doing other reviews as well as the Harry Potter month in October, but for September it's just going to be Harry Potter. So, let's dive right into the first movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's / Philosopher's Stone. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, that's what us Americans call it, is a really good movie. It started one of the most well-known fantasy film franchises. The first one, I believe, if I am not mistaken, was directed by Chris Columbus. If I'm wrong about that, I'll say that I was wrong, but, the directing in some of the Harry Potter movies have a lot of subtlety in the background, and I think that's actually a really interesting touch. So, in case you didn't know what Harry Potter is, well, first off, where have you been for, like, the past few years? Well, more than few. And second, well, Harry Potter is a book franchise by, and I forgot which way to pronounce it, but I'm just gonna say J.K. Rowling. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. So this series is by J.K. Rowling, and it was a fantasy book franchise about a young wizard named Harry Potter. And basically, the whole backstory with him is, the Dark Lord Voldemort, killed his parents and tried to kill him, but didn't succeed, so then he ends up living with his, Aunt Petunia and, forgot the uncle's name, but he lives with them, and they're not very nice people, but that's sort of the gist of the series, I guess. Now, there is a lot more than that, trust me, I know. Now, the Harry Potter fandom is one of the most large, because of the fact that it's a really good series. Now, say what you want about most fandoms, the Harry Potter fandom doesn't have as much, weird stuff, like the Sonic, Five Nights at Freddy's, and, Steven Universe fandoms. This one actually is a bit more tame, because it's more of just nerd stuff than DeviantArt posts. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get right into the plot. Alrighty, so let's start this off like we usually do by reading the plot synopsis. Based on the first of J.K. Rowling's popular children's novels about Harry Potter, the live-action family adventure film, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, tells the story of a boy who learns on his 11th birthday that he is the orphaned son of two powerful wizards and possesses unique magical powers of his own. Invited to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Harry embarks on the adventure of a lifetime. At Hogwarts, he finds the home and the family he has never had. So, yeah. Basically, the plot of Harry Potter is Harry Potter goes to Hogwarts, and then he finds out about the Sorcerer's Stone being kept there, and he thinks that someone is trying to steal it. Which they are, but it's not the person they suspect. So this movie actually has quite a bit of subtle foreshadowing, like the wizard's chess bit in the movie, where they're just playing wizard's chess, and Hermione's like, that's a bit barbaric, don't you think? Or whatever it was that she said, which is kind of foreshadowing to later in the movie, which of course this is going to have spoilers, when they are trying to get the Sorcerer's Stone to protect it, they have to win a game of wizard's chess. Well, giant wizard's chess where they could get decapitated and killed and stuff. But, yeah, the plot is kind of simple at the core, but that's not as much where this shines. Now, it does have a great plot, but I think the directing of the Harry Potter movies is really great. A lot of the shots are very good. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for plot. So, let's move on to the characters. Alright, so there are a lot of characters in the Harry Potter films, so for these ones I'm going to try and split it up into two different categories: the students and the teachers. So let's basically get into the students section. Alrighty, so this is going to be the first part of the characters. Right here, we're going to talk about the students at Hogwarts. So first, let's talk about Harry Potter. So Harry Potter is basically a wizard who didn't really know anything about his past until, he was invited to Hogwarts. So, basically, he's experiencing the wizarding world for the first time as we are experiencing the wizarding world for the first time. Which is actually a great bit of writing subtlety on J.K. Rowling's part. I don't know if that's how it was intended, but that's how it comes off as. So he's played by Daniel Radcliffe, who is actually probably most famous for this movie series, because it is a good series, and it's kind of obvious that why he'd be famous for this, because it's like, when there's this and you compare it to some of your other stuff, there's not really much else to be famous for. So next is Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley. Now, Ron Weasley basically is part of a sort of low-income family, the Weasleys, and he is basically Harry's best friend. And also has a bit of a courageous moment when he decides to sacrifice himself, during the wizard's chess scene, which is actually one of his best moments in the series. And he basically, throughout the series, the tone with him kind of changes. It's like, sometimes he's brave, sometimes he's not, but overall, most of his character points are the same. So next is Hermione Granger. Hermione Granger is basically a book-smart, know-it-all character. And she's really great in the other movies, but in this one, kind of found her a bit annoying. That's not saying anything about her, but it's just that her character was kind of annoying in this one. So next is Oliver Wood. Oliver Wood is the captain of the Quidditch team. Well, not the captain, he's the... What is his role in the team? I don't remember what exactly it's called, but he's like pretty much the goalie of Quidditch. And I think he actually is the captain of the Quidditch team. He's played by Sean Biggerstaff. I haven't really seen him in much else. But he is a pretty good character. So next, we're moving on to our last two student characters, and we're not going to talk about all of them in each movie. I think for the rest of the movies, we're just going to talk about characters as a whole, and just hit on, like, specifics. So next we have Tom Felton as Draco Malfoy. Slytherin rules! So he is part of the best house, Slytherin, which, in case you didn't know, I took a quiz on Pottermore, and I am a part of Slytherin. Which, I have a little rant about Slytherin, the fact that somehow everyone that's evil is part of Slytherin house, but there's like no reason for that. Slytherin in itself isn't inherently evil. It's the characteristics of a Slytherin is like smart and cunning, I think. But so let's talk about Draco Malfoy, who is a jerk. I don't like him that much. He is from the same house as I am, but he still is a bit of a jerk. And that's... calling him a bit of a jerk is kind of a stretch. So Draco Malfoy is basically a bully. He doesn't like anyone that's not pure, so basically he thinks he's royal. He thinks he's royalty because he's pure blood, which is really dumb. But yeah, he's sort of the miniature antagonist of the series, because like Voldemort is the main antagonist of the series, and then Draco Malfoy is kind of a bit more of a not inherently evil antagonist, which there's a lot of those in movies, because you have like a villain and then a character who's not on the same side as the hero, but not on the same side as the villain. So anyway, let's move on to Matthew Lewis as Neville Longbottom, and man, I feel bad for Neville. So this is a bit of a spoiler for the, I think, last movie, but pretty much the only important thing that Neville did was he decapitated Nagini, Voldemort's pet snake. And, you know, I just feel like he is just the sad character. he is there for comedic relief, obviously, but the thing with him is he always gets hurt. For example, in this, let's talk about the examples in this movie. Okay, so in this movie, first, he ends up breaking his bones after falling off of a broom. And then also he tries to defend Gryffindor house because Harry, Hermione, and Ron keep sneaking out, and he's like, I'll fight you, and they're just like, Petrificus Totalis, and he just falls on the ground. But he does get awarded several points for standing up to his fellow students, even though they were kind of put in the right. So anyway, that's all for the student characters. This video is going to be way too long, but let's move on to the teachers. Alrighty, so for the teacher characters, I don't have as much for them, but I'll try and go through them. So, first off, we have Rubeus Hagrid. Now, Rubeus is another protagonist, main protagonist. He is basically Harry and Hermione's friend. Now, in this movie, basically what he does is he helps them out and also accidentally tells them a lot of stuff about the Sorcerer's Stone. And I'm sorry for anyone watching me in the future that's British. Sorry, just have to call it that because that's what I know it by. So yeah, Rubeus Hagrid helps the protagonists unintentionally, but also unintentionally helps the antagonist. Now, the antagonist for this is Professor Quirrell, who I will get to in a minute. So yeah, Rubeus Hagrid ends up telling Quirrell, not knowing it's Quirrell, but he ends up telling Quirrell how to calm down Fluffy. But because of the fact that Quirrell was like, oh, well, like, just asked about Fluffy and stuff. And so, anyway, enough of my little rambling. So, let's move on past Rubeus Hagrid and move on to Professor Dumbledore. Dumbledore is the headmaster at Hogwarts. Now, in, I believe, the first two films, he is played by Richard Harris. Richard Harris does a pretty good performance in this film. And the second one, he shows that Dumbledore is a very kind character, and caring character, unlike later in the series. Not gonna mention the specific film, Goblet of Fire, but yeah, his character in these first two movies is very calm and collected. He doesn't solve problems by shouting at the top of his lungs like in later in the series, and he always speaks in a calm manner in these first two movies. So next, let's move on to the antagonist, Professor Quirrell. And man, Professor Quirrell is a wimp. Like, seriously. Basically, the reason he's an antagonist is he has Voldemort on the back of his head. And he is trying to get the sorcerer's stone, so that Voldemort can, like, drink it and live in his own body and basically be brought back to life. So yeah, Professor Quirrell is... I don't really have much to say about him himself as a character. He is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. But yeah, that's basically his character. So, anyway, next, let's move on to Professor Snape. So, Professor Snape is played by Alan Rickman, who unfortunately died, and that makes me very sad. I'm sad that he died. He was such a cool guy. I love Professor Snape. He's one of my favorite characters in this series. He is the potions teacher, and basically his aspiration and goal, he wants to be Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And he is also one of the people guarding the Sorcerer's Stone. So, yeah, I'm not going to talk that much about him. So, let's move on to Professor McGonagall. So, she is another teacher. She is the head of Gryffindor House, and I don't remember what she teaches, but she is another sort of kind character, and at times she can be kind, but I think she's another one of the people guarding the Sorcerer's Stone. I'm not 100% on that, but she's another professor at Hogwarts, and yeah, that's about all I'm gonna say about her. So that's all the teacher characters. So next, let's move on to the third category that I've decided to put in, the other characters. So next I want to talk about the other characters, so basically the characters that aren't teachers or students. So first we have Vernon Dursley, played by Richard Griffiths. So Vernon Dursley is a jerk, basically. He is Harry's uncle, and he basically takes in Harry and doesn't treat him good at all. And also he decided not to tell Harry about Hogwarts or magic at all, because he thought that it was all rubbish and nonsense. And he is such a terrible person, which I want to applaud Richard Griffiths for being able to portray him that way. It's very difficult to portray a villainous-ish character, like I don't know how I describe it, but it's kind of difficult to portray a character with such a mean attitude and demeanor, but I feel like Richard Griffiths pulls it off really well. So next is Petunia Dursley. She is basically just as bad as Vernon. Her sister was Harry's mother. Now with her, I'm not really gonna say anything else, because I feel like I covered it with Vernon, But next is Mrs. Weasley. She doesn't have as much of a big role in this, but I just decided I'd talk about her. She is Ron's mother, and she is basically helps Harry figure out how to get to platform 9 3/4, and she helps Harry out a lot during the series. So anyway, that's all that I'll have to say about the characters. I'll talk about Dudley Dursley a little bit more in maybe the Chamber of Secrets review. So now let's move on to my overall thoughts. Alrighty, so overall thoughts. So this film is a really good film, but my only complaint is the child acting at times can be a little bit fake looking. But it is better than a lot of other movies with child actors. The characters can convey emotions very well. Which of course they improve very much over the series. And I think it's kind of an instant improvement into the Chamber of Secrets, but more about that when I talk about Chamber of Secrets. But another thing is the subtlety of some of the directing, like, let me think of an example. Well, there's not as much subtlety that I can talk about in this one, but there's a lot of good direction in this, and Chris Columbus pulls it off very well. So, that's all I have to say about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I don't know how long this video is gonna be. It's probably gonna be very long, but I will try to not make the other ones as long, because in this one I kind of had to talk about the characters, but from now on I'm not going to talk about them as much. So anyway, that's it for my review. So this is Alexo623 signing off.